friends, and welcome to Coached by Tara, the podcast where Tara...
Hi, that's me.
...coaches me, hi, I'm Mike, on how to do all kinds of crazy things.
Like know about Twilight.
Mostly just know about Twilight.
Yeah.
She hasn't really taught me anything else, crazy like that. Maybe one day she'll teach me how to, cook.
But you already know how to cook.
Oh. Mission accomplished, high five. She's wrapped in a blanket
like a cocoon burrito.
A caterpillar, and so she couldn't.
Cocoon burrito, I said.
Yeah, like a cocoon burrito. You guys know that term, the typical thing. Anyway, we are doing Twilight, Stephenie Meyer's Twilight. We last chapter did chapter 16, Carlisle.
Yes.
All about the wonderful patriarch of this vampire family. This next chapter is called what?
Chapter 17, The Game.
The Game.
Hunger Games.
Hunger Games. But before we get to that, I'm going to recap the chapter that we did last week, which was number 16, Carlisle.
Carlisle.
So where we left off, Edward was explaining kind of Carlisle's history to Bella because of a giant wooden cross they saw in the house. So
and then they were taking them... He was taking her to other paintings and pieces.
Yes, he was taking her to show her a bunch of things, and they went to Carlisle's office, and he was like, "Yo, I can't really tell you my backstory right now. I gotta go be a doctor.
I gotta do more important things like doctor,
save people's lives, Edward."
Jesus.
Anyway, so Edward tells Bella the story of how he originally tried to fight his vampire-like nature after he became one, and tried to kill himself, and tried to do a bunch of different things. And then one day he fed on a deer out of ravenous hunger and realized that,
oh my god,
I used to eat deer anyway. What's the difference?
And
I'll
that it
animals.
It helped the thirst, so it worked.
Right. And so then he started to meet a bunch of different. He met some vampires in Italy who believed.
Vampires.
What?
I said vampires.
Vampires in Italy. Who believed similar, but they still thought they should feed on humans, but they were just more they weren't just going around killing people, and they weren't feral, and they weren't evil, but they tried to convince each other of their own ideals, and it didn't work, so Carlisle left, and then he went to the New World, and became a doctor over 2 centuries.
Yeah,
because
crazy.
now his blood doesn't affect him really.
Right.
I'm gonna eat this person when he cuts him open.
I can't imagine how hard that would be.
Yeah, and then he met Edward, who was dying, and it was the first person he tried to turn because he was lonely, and he didn't want someone who had a life in front of him, but so he picked Edward, who was going to die anyway. And then there they were.
And they don't really expand after that.
No, they don't really talk about... Edward doesn't want to really go into detail more, it seems like, other than he rebelled at one point, where he went off and was just... He was
I'm a real vampire.
He was kind of being a vigilante vampire, where he would read people's thoughts and only take down people who were bad. But even then, he still felt bad. He felt that it was wrong morally, and so he went back to Carlisle. Then they have this weird thing where Bella says she isn't scared of him, and he kind of wrestles her. And
because now they go up to his room.
They playfully wrestle. Yeah, his room, which is the casting couch area.
Yes.
And they wrestle, and then Alice and Jasper come in and say, "Hey, there's going to be a storm tonight. Do you guys want to play ball?"
Yes.
And they're like, "Sure." And then they leave, and the Bella's like, "What do you mean play ball?" And he's like, "We're going to play baseball." And she's like, "Vampires like baseball?"
It's the American pastime.
It's the American pastime, he said.
No. Yeah, that is what he said.
Wait, why'd you say no?
I thought you were going to try to say that word again.
Oh.
Anyway.
I don't even remember what you were saying, to be honest with that.
Okay.
But anyway, that was
you
the
are
chapter.
Correct. Chapter 16, Carlisle. That's what it was about.
This chapter 17, I've predicted that bad boys are going to show up and ruin the baseball game.
Okay.
So, Tara, are you ready to take me out to the ball game and coach me on some more Twilight?
Yes.
Okay, we'll be right back.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Tara.
Are you ready to be coached?
I'm so ready to be
I'm
coached.
coaching baseball today.
Good. Maybe we can get my my batting percentage up.
Yeah, I think we can. I think
Maybe
it's a
my
good
on
thing.
base percentage.
Yeah.
Maybe my ERA. I don't know baseball. ERA is like a pitcher thing, I think.
Is it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I should know. I used to watch a lot of baseball.
Ass. Average runs ass.
ERA.
Yeah, ERA. Average runs ass.
But average doesn't start with E.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, anyways, chapter 17, the game.
I'm sorry. Ass runs average.
That's still not ERA.
I know.
Everyone runs average. Everyone runs ass.
Everyone runs ass.
That's it.
That's
it.
That's the most important stat in baseball.
So, obviously, this chapter starts off with Edward taking Bella home first because she can't wear that Mormon skirt outfit to a baseball game.
And not in the storm.
No, God, no. God, no.
Edward would be too distracted by how utterly indecent she looked.
Yeah, exactly. So it was just beginning to drizzle when they pull up to her street, and then she saw the black car, a weathered Ford, parked in Charlie's driveway, and I heard Edward mutter something unintelligible in a low, harsh voice. Leaning away from the rain under the shallow front porch, Jacob Black stood behind his father's wheelchair. Billy's face was impassive as stone as Edward parked my truck against the curb. Jacob stared down, his expression mortified. Edward's low voice was furious. This is crossing the line. He came to warn Charlie, I guessed, more horrified than angry. Edward just nodded, answering Billy's gaze through the rain with narrowed eyes. I felt weak with relief that Charlie wasn't home yet. Let me deal with this, I suggested. Edward's black glare made me anxious. That's probably best. Be careful, though. The child has no idea. I bridled a little at the word child. Jacob is not that much younger than I am, I reminded him. Oh, I know, he assured me with a grin.
Yikes.
Yeah.
This is a little
weird
way to start the chapter. So Charlie came back to be like, hey, listen, dude.
You gotta not have her hang out with the Cullens.
Or no, Billy. I'm sorry.
Billy came back.
Billy
Sorry,
came back to say to Charlie, yo, she's hanging out with the Cullens. Not good, dude.
He says, get them inside so I can leave. I'll be back around dusk. Do you want my truck? I offered. Meanwhile, wondering how I would explain its absence to Charlie. I could walk home faster than this truck moves. He rolled his eyes. You don't have to leave. Actually, I do. After you get rid of them, he threw a dark glance in the Black's directions. You still have to prepare, Charlie, to meet your new boyfriend. He smiled widely. I groaned. Thanks a lot. I'll be back soon. So then he leaves. And he kissed her before he did that. Like on the side of her face.
Do you think Jacob was like...
On the side of her face.
But do you still think Jacob was like... Ugh?
Probably. So she goes up there to the porch. She's like, hey, what up?
What up, bitch?
What up? What up? And she's just like trying to like play it off. And she's just like, Charlie's gone for the day. I hope you haven't been waiting long. And he's like, oh, and like haven't been waiting that long. Just wanted to bring this up. And it was like a bag of something for him. And she's like, hey, why don't you come up for a minute? Blah, blah, blah. And they are just like in the house. He brought Charlie some fish fry from his other friend, Harry Clearwater.
Yeah, Harry Clearwater. Good guy.
She's like, thanks. I was running out of new ways to fix up fish, and he's bound to bring more home tonight. And he said, fishing again? Billy asked with a subtle gleam in his eye. Down at the usual spot? Maybe I'll run by and see him. No, I quickly lied, my face going hard. He was headed someplace new, but I have no idea where. Jake, he said, still appraising me, why don't you go get that new picture of Rebecca out of the car? I'll leave that for Charlie, too. Where is it? Jacob asked, his voice morose. I think I saw it in the trunk, Billy said. You may have to dig for it. So basically he was getting rid of Jacob to get him out of the room.
Because he wants to be like, hey, you know he's a vampire. You need to leave him the fuck alone.
So then Bella's like, I'm getting pissed.
Right.
Bella's getting pissed.
pissed.
And she's like, Charlie won't be back for a long time, like now that Jacob's gone. And she's like, thanks again for the fish fry. And he goes to be like, hey, Bella. And she's like, what?
She's like, what?
He says, Bella, he said again, Charlie is one of my best friends. Yes, he spoke each word carefully in his rumbling voice. I noticed you've been spending time with one of the Cullens. Yes, I repeated curtly. His eyes narrowed. Maybe it's none of my business, but I don't think that is such a good idea. You're right, I agreed. It is none of your business.
Got him.
He raised his graying eyebrows at my tone. You probably don't know this, but the Cullen family has an unpleasant reputation on the reservation. Actually, I did know that, I informed him in a hard voice. This surprised him, but that reputation couldn't be deserved, could it? Because the Cullens never set foot on the reservation, do they? I could see that my less than subtle reminder of the agreement that both bound and protected his tribe pulled him up short. That's true, he acceded, his eyes guarded. You seem well informed about the Cullens, more informed than I expected. I stared him down. Maybe even better informed than you are. He pursed his thick lips as he considered that. Maybe, he allowed, but his eyes were shrewd. Is Charlie as well informed? He had found the weak chink in my armor. Charlie likes the Cullens a lot, I hedged. He clearly understood my evasion. His expression was unhappy but unsurprised. It's not my business, he said, but it may be Charlie's. Though it would be my business again, whether or not I think that it's Charlie's business, right? I wondered if he even understood my confused question as I struggled not to say anything compromising, but he seemed to. He thought about it while the rain picked up against the roof, the only sound that was breaking the silence. Yes, he finally surrendered. I guess that's your business too. Thanks, Billy. Just think about what you're doing, Bella, he urged. Okay, I agreed quickly. He frowned. What I meant to say was, don't do what you're doing. I looked into his eyes, filled with nothing but concern for me, and there was nothing I could say. So then Jacob comes in. Back in.
Hey, what you guys talking about?
And he's like, well, there's no picture in there, blah, blah. And Billy's like, well, I guess I must have left it at home. He's like, okay, well, Bella, tell Charlie that we stopped by. Tell Charlie that we stopped by, I mean. And she's like, I will. And Jacob's like, we're leaving already? Dang it. Just wanted to
talk to Bella.
Didn't even get to talk to Bella.
I didn't get to talk to Bella.
Well, I guess I'll see you later then, Bella, he says.
Bella. I like the voice you do for Jacob.
I don't do a voice, do I?
Yeah, you do a voice.
Oh,
I guess I'll see you later, Bella.
So then they leave. And that was just like, that's crazy.
Billy, you fuck.
He's trying to intrude.
Billy.
Don't you think?
Billy.
Don't you think?
What the heck, Billy? Mind your business, Billy.
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 What is that from?
I don't know. That's how I say Billy. Or sometimes if it's Willie, I say Willie. Billy.
Willie?
Billy. Billy Black.
Okay, anyways.
Sorry, I thought we were kind of doing like a Cool Beans thing from Hot Rod.
Billy!
Billy. Billy. Everybody should go watch Hot Rod. Great movie.
Yeah, once again, we're on to Hot Rod.
Once again, best movie.
So
I'm gonna have Tara explain Hot Rod to me just so I can relive it again.
Yeah, he definitely knows Hot Rod.
But I just want you to explain it to me.
Exactly.
Coach me on it, if you will.
Wink.
Did you say moink?
Wink, I said.
There was like an M noise at the beginning. Moink.
Coach me on my Hot Rod wink. Is what you said.
I'm so sorry, everybody.
So then she's like, just a little shaken up by that. Bella is. So then she's like, well, I guess I got to get ready for this night of baseball.
Baseball and dad meeting boyfriend.
Yes. As I concentrated on what was coming, what had just passed became insignificant. Now that I was removed from Jasper's and Edward's influence, I began to make up for not being terrified before. I gave up quickly on choosing an outfit, throwing it on an old flannel shirt and jeans, knowing I would be in a raincoat all night anyways. The phone rang and I sprinted downstairs to get it. And there was only one voice I wanted to hear. Anything else would be a disappointment. But I knew that if he wanted to talk to me, he'd probably just materialize in my room. Hello, I asked. Bella, it's me, Jessica said. Oh, hey, Jess. It felt like months rather than days since I'd spoken to her. How was the dance? It was so much fun. And then she was like giving like a account, like a minute by minute account of like what it was like to be.
And then me and Mike Newton necked.
Yeah, the dance, the school, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, did you hear what I said? And she's like, oh yeah, sorry, what? And she said, I said Mike kissed me. Can you believe it?
OMG.
Oh my God.
Mike kissed me, and then he said Bella, which I thought was really weird.
But then he corrected himself.
But then he
I
said,
was like,
no, I meant Jessica, not Bella. I'm sorry.
And then she's like, oh, that's so wonderful. And she's like, what did you do? And she's like, nothing really. Just hung around outside to enjoy the sun. Can you believe that was just yesterday?
Yeah.
Just one day.
Just one day, and it's been like 6 chapters.
And then she's like, oh, then Charlie comes in and Jessica hears his voice. Like, cause he's like, hello. And Jessica's like, oh, I hear your dad's there. We'll talk more tomorrow. See you in Trig. Bye.
That's right. She has to go back to school.
Yeah, she has to go back to school.
What the frick?
She's just a regular teenager.
Just don't go back.
I know, right?
Be a vampire's wife.
You can't just give up your hopes and dreams to be vampire's wife.
Does she have hopes and dreams, though?
I don't know. I guess you'll find
What does Bella
out.
want to do? Hang out with Edward?
And then she tells Charlie that Billy came with Harry's fish fry. And he's like, oh my gosh, he did? That's my favorite. And he goes, what did you do with yourself today? And she said, well, this afternoon I hung out around the house. And then this morning I was over at the Cullens. Charlie dropped his fork. Dr. Cullen's place, he asked in astonishment. I pretended not to notice his reaction. Yeah. What were you doing there? He hadn't picked his fork back up. Well, I sort of have a date with Edward Cullen tonight, and he wanted to introduce me to his parents. Dad? It appeared that Charlie was having an aneurysm. Dad, are you all right? You're going out with Edward Cullen? He thundered. Uh-oh. I thought you liked the Cullens. He's too old for you, he ranted. We're both juniors, I corrected, though he was more right than he dreamed. Wait, he paused. Which one is Edwin? Edward.
Charlie.
Edward is the youngest, the one with reddish brown hair. The beautiful one, the godlike one she was thinking in her mind. Well, that's, he struggled, better, I guess. I don't like the look of that big one. I'm sure he's a nice boy and all, but he looks too mature for you. Is this Edwin your boyfriend? It's Edward, Dad. He's such a dad.
Charlie.
He? Sort of, I guess. You said last night that you weren't interested in any of the boys in town. But he picked up his fork again, so I could see the worst of it was over. Well, Edward doesn't live in town, Dad. He gave me a disparaging look as he chewed. And anyways, I continued, it's kind of at an early stage, you know. Don't embarrass me with all the boyfriend talk, okay? When is he coming over? He'll be here in a few minutes. Where is he taking you? I groaned loudly. I hope you're getting the Spanish Inquisition out of your system now. We're going to play baseball with his family. His face puckered and then he finally chuckled. You're playing baseball? Well, I'll probably watch most of the time. You must really like this guy, he observed suspiciously. I sighed and rolled my eyes for his benefit. I heard the roar of an engine pull up, so basically Edward had now arrived. So the doorbell rings and Charlie goes to answer it and she's like right behind him because she's like, oh my God, he's meeting my dad, which that's kind of scary.
It is.
And he goes, come on in, Edward. And he says, thanks, Chief Swan, Edward said in a respectful voice. Go ahead and call me Charlie. Here, I'll take your jacket. Thanks, sir. Have a seat there, Edward. I grimaced. Edward sat down fluidly in the chair, forcing me to sit next to Chief Swan on the sofa. I quickly shot him a dirty look. He winked behind Charlie's back. So I hear you're getting my girl to watch baseball. Only in Washington would the fact that it was raining buckets have no bearing at all on the playing of outdoor sports. Yes, sir, that's the plan. He didn't look surprised that I told my father the truth. He might have been listening, though. Well, more power to you, I guess, Charlie laughed, and Edward joined in. Okay, I stood up. Enough humor at my expense. Let's go. She's like, it's been like 2 seconds.
Right, barely said anything.
Okay, let's leave. And he's like, don't be out too late, Bella. And he says, don't worry, Charlie. I'll have her home early, Edward promised. You take care of my girl, all right? I groaned, but they ignored me. She'll be safe with me, I promise, sir. So pretty good interaction.
Yeah, not bad, Edward.
So then go outside, and she stops dead on the porch. There behind my truck was a monster Jeep. Its tires were higher than my waist. There were metal guards over the headlights and taillights and 4 large spotlights attached to the crash bar. The hardtop was shiny red. Charlie let out a low whistle. wear your seatbelts, he choked out. It's just like a big ass car.
He's probably, oh my God, I want to drive that.
And she's like, I can't even put on my seatbelt. This is like freaking, there's like all these belts. And he's like, it's an off-roading harness. She's like, oh God, where are we going? She's like, this is a big Jeep you have.
I'd like to wrangle that Jeep. Am I right?
Yeah.
I'd like to give that Jeep some liberty. That's another type of Jeep. That's another type of Jeep.
What's something for Patriot?
Your Jeep really stands at attention like a Patriot. I bet Jacob has a Jeep Cherokee. I don't know any more Jeeps.
No, me neither.
Forester? Is that a Jeep?
No, that's a Subaru, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. I don't know anything about cars at all.
Jeep beep beep.
Beep beep.
You ever play that?
What?
When you're driving?
No.
You know, like Slugbug?
No.
Wait, you don't know Slugbug?
No, I know Slugbug, but I don't know Jeep beep beep.
When you see a Jeep, you just gotta be the first to go Jeep beep beep.
That's not true.
Yes, it is.
That's not a thing.
It's real.
If anyone has done that game, let me know.
I think Tina made it up.
Jeep beep beep.
My sister made it up.
That's a made up game for sure.
Yeah, but you've never played it?
No.
Oh, okay, it's pretty popular.
So Edward says it's Emmett's Jeep. He's like, I didn't think you'd want to have to run the whole way there because she got sick last time. God.
Right.
And she's like, well, run the whole way as in we're still gonna run part of the way. Like, he's like, you're not going to run, and she's like, I'm going to be sick, and he's like, you'll keep your eyes closed and you'll be fine.
Yeah, just suck it up, Bella.
Yeah, geez, at least he can run fast at all. And he leans over to kiss the top of her head. You smell so good in the rain, he explained. In a good way or in a bad way, I asked cautiously. He said, both, always both. Anyway, so they're heading down less of a road and more of like a mountain path. And then they come to the end of the road, and the trees formed walls on three sides of the Jeep. The rain was a drizzle up there, slowing every second. The sky brighter than the cloud. Through the cloud, they have to head through the woods, and she has to get on his back so he can run again. And she's like, "I'll just stay behind."
Yeah,
and he's like, "What happened to your courage? All your courage. You were extraordinary this morning." And she said, "I haven't forgotten the last time we ran yet. Could have only been yesterday. Literally, was only the day before." So yeah. So then. They're just like talking about like the fact that they don't really have a choice. So they're just gonna go anyways. She's like kind of arguing with him. Like, I'm kind of scared that you're gonna hit something, or like, and he's like, would I really let something hurt you? And she's like, no. And that goes on for literally like a full page and a half. So I'm not reading that because it's kind of annoying.
Right.
Then before he takes off though, it says, he took my face in his hands almost roughly and kissed me in earnest, his unyielding lips moving against mine. There really was no excuse for my behavior. Obviously, I knew better by now, and yet I couldn't seem to stop from reacting exactly as I had the first time. Instead of keeping safely motionless, my arms reached up to twine tightly around his neck, and I was suddenly welded to his stone figure. I sighed, and my lips parted. He staggered back, breaking my grip effortlessly. Damn it, Bella, he broke off, gasping. You'll be the death of me, I swear you will.
She was choking him.
Well, she was just holding on to him when she was kissing him back, but can't do that. It takes him by surprise. You're indestructible, I mumbled, trying to catch my breath. I might have believed that before I met you. Now let's get out of here before I do something really stupid, he growled. He's like, don't forget to close your eyes, and they're off. And then finally, he's like, it's over, Bella. And she's like, oh, it wasn't as bad as she thought. Like, should have just listened. Yeah. So he says, it's over, Bella, when they get to the place where they need to be. And she slips down to the ground and she lands on her butt. That's what happens. And she's like, oh my God. And he starts laughing at her.
Well, why wouldn't he?
He's like, oh my God. And it says, I picked myself up, ignoring him as I brushed the mud and bracken off the back of my jacket. That only made him laugh harder. Annoyed, I began to stride off into the forest. I felt his arm around my waist. Where are you going, Bella? To watch a baseball game. You don't seem to be interested in playing anymore, but I'm sure the others will have fun without you. You're going the wrong way. I turned around without looking at him and stalked off in the opposite direction. He caught me again. Don't be mad. I couldn't help myself. You should have seen your face, like when she tripped or when she landed on her butt. Oh, you're the only one who's allowed to get mad? I asked, raising my eyebrows. I wasn't mad at you. Bella, you'll be the death of me, I quoted sourly. That was simply a statement of fact. I tried to turn away from him again, but he held me fast. You were mad, I insisted. Yes, but you just said that I wasn't mad at you. Can't you see that, Bella? He was suddenly intense, all trace of teasing gone. Don't you understand? See what? I demanded, confused by his sudden mood swing as much as his words. I'm never angry with you. How could I be? Brave, trusting, as warm as you are. Then why? I whispered, remembering the black moods that pulled him away from me, that I'd always interpreted as well-justified frustration. Frustration at my weakness, my slowness, and my unruly human reactions. He put his hands carefully on both sides of my face. I infuriate myself, he said gently, the way I can't seem to keep from putting you in danger. My very existence puts you at risk. Sometimes I truly hate myself. I should be stronger. I should be able to. I placed my hand over his mouth. Don't. He took my hand, moving it from his lips, but holding it to his face. I love you, he said. It's a poor excuse for what I'm doing, but it's still true. It was the first time he'd said he'd loved me in so many words. He might not realize it, but I certainly did. Now please try to behave yourself, he continued, and he bent to softly brush his lips against mine. I held properly still, then I sighed. You promised Chief Swan that you would get me home early, remember? We'd better get going. Yes, ma'am. So then finally they're walking towards the place where
the baseball happens.
The ball of base.
Ball of base.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I've never really thought about why it's called baseball before, but there are bases.
Yes, the ball of base.
Where like football, like only one player
the
ever
ball
kicks
of
the
foot?
ball.
No,
only one
wrong.
player ever kicks the ball, which is why soccer is called football. Footballs should be man ball.
Yes, you're right.
Ball of man.
Ball of man. Testicles.
Test a ball.
So then they're like in an open area where it's a field that is described as twice the size of any baseball stadium. So all the other people are there. Mm-hmm. Esme, Emmett, and Rosalie. And then much farther out, she could see that Jasper and Alice were like throwing something back and forth, but she never saw the ball, like it was moving so fast. And it looked like Carlisle was marking the bases, but could they really be that far apart? It says.
So they're like real far apart.
Mm-hmm. When we came into view, the three on the rocks rose. Esme started toward us. Emmett followed after a long look at Rosalie's back. Rosalie had risen gracefully and strode off toward the field without a glance in our direction. My stomach quivered uneasily in response. It says, was that you we heard, Edward? Esmond asked as she approached. It sounded like a bear choking, Emmett clarified. I smiled hesitantly at Esme. That was him. Bella was being unintentionally funny, Edward explained, settling the score. Alice had left her position and was running or dancing toward us. She hurtled to a fluid stop at our feet. It's time, she announced. As soon as she spoke, a deep rumble of thunder shook the forest behind us and then crashed westward toward town. Eerie, isn't it? Emmett said with easy familiarity, winking at me. Let's go. Alice reached for Emmett's hand and they darted toward the oversized field. She ran like a gazelle. He was nearly as graceful and just as fast, but Emmett could never be compared to a gazelle. Are you ready for some ball? Edward asked. Go team, she says. Go team. He bounds off, and it describes his run was more aggressive, a cheetah rather than a gazelle. And he quickly overtook them. The grace and power took my breath away. So, like, pretty...
Me too.
Me too. Shall we go down? Esme asked in her soft melodic voice, and I realized I was staring open-mouthed after him. I quickly reassembled my expression and nodded, so they're just watching. She says, you don't play with them? No, I prefer to referee. I like keeping them honest, Esme explained. Do they like to cheat then? Oh, yes, you should hear the arguments they get into. Actually, I hope you don't. You would think they were raised by a pack of wolves.
Oh, yikes.
You sound like my mom, I laughed. Well, I do think of them as my children in most ways. I never could get over my mothering instincts. Did Edward tell you I had lost a child? No, I murmured, stunned, scrambling to understand what lifetime she was remembering. Yes, my first and only baby. He died just a few days after he was born, the poor tiny thing. She sighed. It broke my heart. That's why I jumped off the cliff, you know, she said matter-of-factly.
Oh,
Edward just said you fell, I stammered. Always the gentleman, she smiled. Edward was the first of my new sons. I've always thought of him that way, even though he's older than I, in one way at least. She smiled at me warmly. That's why I'm so happy that he's found you, dear. The endearment sounded very natural on her lips. He's been the odd man out for far too long. It hurts me to see him alone. You don't mind, then? I asked, hesitant again, that I'm all wrong for him? No, she was thoughtful. You're what he wants. It will work out somehow, she said, though her forehead creased with worry. So basically, Esme just told her story. So
right. So
she was
she lost a small child.
In her human life, she gave birth, and a couple days later, it died. And she was so distraught, she tried to commit suicide, but it did not work out. She was still horribly alive. When she had fling herself off the cliff.
And Carlisle
found her and saved her. And then
was like, now you have to be in love with me.
Well, no, I'm assuming there was, it doesn't really say, but I'm assuming there was a gradual in loveness.
Sorry. Now you live forever.
With me. Dun dun dun.
You are my wife.
You are my wife now.
You are a wife. Dun dun dun.
Dun, dun, dun. So then Esme stopped and they had reached the outskirts of the field and they had formed teams. Edward was in left field and Carlisle stood between first and second and Alice held the ball. So they were all on the same team. And then Emmett was swinging an aluminum bat and he was the first at bat. And
are you going to give me a baseball play-by-play right now?
Maybe. And Jasper stood several feet behind him, catching for the other team. So then Esme said, all right, batter up. Alice stood straight, deceptively motionless. Her style seemed to be stealth rather than an intimidating wind-up. She held the ball in both hands at her waist, and then, like the strike of a cobra, her right hand flicked out and the ball smacked into Jasper's hand. Was that a strike? I whispered to Esme. If they don't hit it, it's a strike. Because she can't see it. It's like too fast. Jasper hurled the ball back to Alice's waiting hand. She permitted herself a brief grin, and then her hand spun out again. This time, the bat somehow made it around in time to smash into the invisible ball. The crack of impact was shattering, thunderous. It echoed off the mountains. I immediately understood the necessity of the thunderstorm. You're right.
That one was pretty...
The ball shot like a meteor above the field, flying deep into the surrounding forest. Home run, I murmured. Wait, Esme cautioned, listening intently, one hand raised. Emmett was a blur around the bases, Carlisle shadowing him. I realized Edward was missing. Out, Esme cried in a clear voice. I stared in disbelief as Edward sprang from the fringe of the ball, his ball in his... from fringe of the...
fringe of the burls.
Fringe of the trees.
Edward sprung from the fringe of his balls.
Ball in his upraised hand, his wide grin visible to me, even to me. Emmett hits the hardest, Esme explained, but Edward runs the fastest. Fringe of balls? What was I reading?
I don't know. You just had balls on the brain, I guess.
I guess so. I mean,
you saw Edward and you were like, balls.
Balls. So then she just describes the inning continuing and stuff in Carlisle is like they switch, you know, like the inning continues and they switch
right,
sides.
Everybody's getting their turns at bat.
Yeah, they got to have their turn at bat. And then it says Emmett's team was up by 1. Rosalie managed to flit around the bases after tagging up on one of Emmett's long flies when Edward caught the third out. And so then Edward like sprints to her side for a moment. He's like, what do you think? He asked. One thing's for sure, I'll never be able to sit through dull Major League Baseball again. And it sounds like you did so much of that before, he laughed. I'm a little disappointed, I teased. Why? He asked. Well, it would be nice if I could just find one thing you didn't do better than anyone else on this planet. He flashed his special crooked smile, leaving me breathless. I'm up, he said, heading for the plate. It says he played intelligently, keeping the ball low, out of the reach of Rosalie's always ready hand in the outfield. The score constantly changed as the game continued, and they razzed each other like any other street ball players as they took turns with the lead. Occasionally, Esme would call them to order. The thunder rumbled on, but we stayed dry, as Edward predicted. Carlisle was up to bat, Edward catching, when Alice suddenly gasped. My eyes were on Edward as usual, and I saw his head snap up to look at her. Their eyes met, and something flowed between them in an instant. He was at my side before the others could ask Alice what's wrong. Alice, Esme's voice was tense. I didn't see. I couldn't tell, she whispered. All the others were gathered by this time. What is it, Alice? Carlisle asked with the calm voice of authority. They were traveling much quicker than I thought. I can see I had the perspective wrong before, she murmured. Jasper leaned over her, his posture protective. What changed? He asked. They heard us playing, and it changed their path, she said, contrite, as if she felt responsible for whatever had frightened her. 7 pairs of quick eyes flashed to my face, and then away. How soon? Carlisle said, turning toward Edward. A look of intense concentration crossed his face. Less than 5 minutes. They're running. They want to play, he scowled. Can you make it? Carlisle asked him, his eyes flicking towards me again. No, not carrying, he cut short. Besides, the last thing we need is for them to catch the scent and start hunting. How many? Emmett asked Alice. 3, she answered tersely. 3, he scoffed. Let them come. The steel bands of muscle flexed along his massive arms. For a split second... Well, Emmett, he's like, oh yeah.
Let him come.
Yeah.
Well, fuck him up.
For a split second that seemed much longer than it really was, Carlisle deliberated. Only Emmett seemed unperturbed. The rest stared at Carlisle's face with anxious eyes. Let's just continue the game, Carlisle finally decided. His voice was cool and level. Alice said they were simply curious. All this was said in a flurry of words that lasted only a few seconds. I had listened carefully and caught most of it, though I couldn't hear what Esme now asked Edward with a silent vibration of her lips. I only saw the slight shake of his head and the look of relief on her face. You catch, Esme, he said. I'll call it now, and planted himself in front of me. The others returned to the field, warily sweeping the dark forest with their sharp eyes.
I was right.
Yes, you were right. Alice and Esme seemed to orient themselves around where I stood. Take your hair down, Edward said in a low, even voice. I obediently slid the rubber band out of my hair and shook it out around me. I stated the obvious. The others are coming now. Yes, stay very still, keep quiet, and don't move from my side, please. He hid the stress in his voice well, but I could hear it. He pulled my long hair forward around my face. That won't help, Alice said softly. I could smell her across the field. I know. A hint of frustration colored his tone. What did Esme ask you? I whispered. He hesitated for a second before he answered. Whether they were thirsty, he muttered, unwillingly. The seconds ticked by. The game progressed with apathy now. So, no one dared to, do it really crazily. They were just
Well, they weren't having fun anymore.
Right.
It's a tense situation.
So it says, now and again, despite the fear that numbed my brain, I was aware of Rosalie's eyes on me. They were expressionless, but something about the way she held her mouth made me think she was angry. Edward paid no attention to the game at all, eyes and mind ranging the forest. I'm sorry, Bella, he muttered fiercely. It was stupid, irresponsible to expose you like this. I'm so sorry. I heard his breath stop, and his eyes zeroed in on right field. He took half a step, angling himself between me and what was coming. Carlisle, Emmett, and the others turned in the same direction, hearing sounds of passage much too faint for my ears. And that's the end of chapter 17.
No. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, yeah, you were right.
I was right.
People are coming. Things are coming, I should say. Not people.
Things.
Things.
I'm assuming vampires. I mean, it's a pretty fair assumption to make,
Yeah,
right?
considering she was like, it was the others that I anticipated.
But didn't she say, when they first talked about it originally, didn't she say they were curious about them because they don't feed?
I don't remember. Maybe. But like, they're just curious about who lives in the area, I think, because they're nomadic. So they're like, who lives, like, who's living here?
Right.
But she just feels bad because she got the timing wrong. She didn't know.
Well, it changed.
Yeah,
because like
changed.
you said, it's not, it's like what could happen.
It's
not...
yeah, you're right. Like, she could know, though, that it would change, but she didn't because it changed so quickly.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And that's what's crazy about, like, people's decisions is, like, in the future, like, people's decisions could change in an instant.
Well, right. Well, and when she's seen them, I guess she's not seen that they're on the way. She's seen their interaction with, like, that they are going to interact with them at some point.
Right.
So she doesn't know, like, where they are necessarily. She just knows that they are going to meet with them at some point in the future. And then that changed the timeline real fast because I knew they wouldn't be able to mask that to vampire people. Normal people, sure.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That's the point, but...
Pretty crazy.
Yeah. Is Bella gonna die before the first book's over? Probably not.
I don't know. You'll never know.
You never know.
How do you feel
I'll
about
never
it?
know? Wait, are we done?
Yeah, we're done. This is it.
Forever. I'm excited to see what happens. We're finally getting some conflict.
I'm very excited, too, because we're, like, in it,
Yeah, we're in it. We're in it to win it. Anyway, Tara, thank you so much for coaching me this week.
You're welcome.
And thank you, everybody, for listening.
Yes, if you would like to interact with us,
go
ahead. On Twitter. You could tweet us at CBTerrapod, or you can email us. We like to read emails on this lovely podcast.
Yes.
It's cbterrapodcast@gmail.com. Or you're welcome to send us anything, like a letter or whatever you desire.
We haven't checked the P.O. Box in a while.
To our P.O. Box at P.O. Box 8159. That's Kentwood, Michigan, 49518. We'll post that below.
Or finally, you can leave a review on iTunes, on Apple Podcasts.
You can also
just say
leave a review.
that we're good, and that actually helps us with discoverability.
Oh,
so
yes.
The more 5-star ratings we have, the more likely people
will
are
stumble
going to stumble upon our podcast.
Will they?
It helps us.
Are a lot of people looking up Twilight podcasts at this time?
I don't know.
I don't know, but that will help us.
So we appreciate that, and thank you everybody for listening, and we will see you next week. Tara, thank you for coaching me again.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye.